Good afternoon, and welcome to Faces of DACA Live. My name is José Arnulfo Cabrera. I am the Director of Education and Advocacy for Migration at Ignatian Solidarity Network. For over 15 years, the Ignatian Solidarity Network has been uniting the Jesuit network and larger Catholic Church to build a more just world through faith-based social justice, formation, education, and advocacy. In September of 2017, the Trump administration presented the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA program, which protects eligible undocumented youth and adults from deportation. By doing so, it put recipients in danger of deportation. Numerous lawsuits were brought against the administration. These successful lawsuits allowed DACA recipients to continue renewing their DACA, but denied applications from new eligible individuals. For years, ISN has worked to uplift the stories of DACA recipients and their families in our Ignatian network. We have shared the contributions that they have made across the country at our Jesuit institutions, including colleges and universities, parishes, and other Jesuit-run ministries and organizations. Since 2009, we have mobilized our Ignatian family to advocate for a pathway to citizenship for undocumented youth. Today, we continue that work and follow the lead of DACA recipients in our Ignatian family. Last November, I stood with Jesuit priests, parishioners at Jesuit parishes, faculty and staff at Jesuit schools, and DACA recipients in our Ignatian network on the steps of the Supreme Court as the justices heard oral arguments on the DACA case. Since March, thousands of us have been waiting for a ruling on DACA. Regardless of time zone you are in, DACA recipients, advocates, allies wake up at 10 a.m. Eastern Time to begin hitting refresh on the Supreme Court website to see if today's day we spring into action and begin the next stage of fighting for DACA recipients and their families. Since February, ISN has been releasing a series of one-pagers called DACA, What's at Stake? We hope these one-pagers would create a moment of encounter with you and a DACA recipient in your Jesuit and Catholic family. And we hope you understand what DACA recipients are facing as the Supreme Court determines their faith. Now we want to take it one step further and broadcast a series of conversations with the participants of our Faces of DACA. We know it's a difficult time to have this conversation of its own, and more difficult as racial turmoil happens in our country. But I want to thank you for joining us, and I want to hope that our conversation does not distract the light from everything that is happening and the importance that the Black Lives Matter movement and Black people around our country are trying to address in the racial tension that we are experiencing. So I want to introduce Filza Ali, who is who graduated from Loyola University Chicago this last month, right?
Yeah.
Well, welcome, Filza, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Jose. I do want to acknowledge again. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I don't know if you were done. Oh, okay.
No, go ahead.
I did want to acknowledge that we appreciate people's capacity to have this conversation with us right now with everything going on, and conversations that are heavy and difficult no matter when they happen, they need to happen. So again, thank you, Jose.
Yeah, thanks for being with us. So, to kind of start us off, what was your last year of college like at LMU?
Well, LUC, but
Oh,
I
I'm
in
sorry.
senior
I'm so
year,
sorry
yeah,
about that.
it's okay. It rolls off the tongue. No, um, yeah, I so last year was definitely really heavy with the decision of the SCOTUS DACA decision. But something that kept me uplifted in this time was the work that I did with undocumented student programming, and that is basically just the work that we did in our community and our school was to educate people and you know give them the tools that they can use to become allies for undocumented people. We did days of actions, we did events, and then I also attended the teach-in for social justice, which is how I got really involved with ISN, and I met Jose formally and learned a lot, not just about immigration reform, but also the environment, a lot of issues that I wasn't aware of, nor did I have knowledge on. Um, and this semester, of course, right, with everything going on with COVID and the pandemic, the semester was cut pretty short. So successfully, I do think that we had our docu week. So I'm rocking the merch shirt right now.
Yeah.
And that was really just to give folks the space to listen, to learn, and to take action. So I'm really just glad that this semester, even though that was cut short, we had a quick turnaround with how we use social media to give people awareness and resources on mental health during this time, how to stay updated and communicate with our undocumented community. So yeah, overall, with the circumstances, of course, they're not, great by any means, but I'm thankful for the work that we've done together to keep this movement and keep the drive going. And I'm happy that I just graduated. So, that's a big accomplishment, even though, celebration might not be, physical and happening, but I still do feel really proud of that.
Yeah, and we're proud that you're graduating. It's a special thing. I know the feeling. You talked a little bit about pandemic cutting short, and if I'm not mistaken, um, was did you all have to leave campus right, kind of very close to right after you got done with Undocu Week?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we had Undocu Week basically for 1 week, and the Thursday, which was going to be our biggest event, would be an open mic night to have folks share out their narratives. That was the event we didn't get to do. Thankfully, though, we had planned it right after spring break, so we got 3 out of basically like 5 events that we planned. So that's a success in its own. But then the Thursday was where everything kind of was then quick running, where we had to go back home and stuff like that.
How was the how did the pandemic affect you and your community there?
Yeah, I think personally, I can't speak for everybody, of course, it's not my place, but in terms of just me personally, the pandemic in terms of school, it was hard because you had to leave. There's a lot of people that had to adjust to what that would mean. And thankfully, in my work, I am so fortunate to know so many amazing mentors and community organizers and faculty and staff at Loyola that ask the right questions. And so, with just my position in documented student programming, I think our efforts and our attention fell to the students that would be most vulnerable in that time. And that's not just undocumented students. That's the homelessness population. The homeless students that we have, and then food insecurity. What would happen with students on that end? So, as a community, as a leader, not only at Loyola, but in my community as well, I wanted to ask myself and others like what we need to do for our community and our students. And so I'm really thankful that I had so many people rallied around all of us that were asking the right questions, getting the job done, and making this experience, even though it's uncertain, it's overwhelming, we don't know when things are going to get better or change, that we're taking care of the current needs of the students right now. As in terms of being undocumented, of course, I think it's hard because financially as a DACA recipient, working is something I'm pretty thankful. I guess I can say I'm thankful. I work in healthcare. And so my job was still there. That's a blessing, but you can also say it's overwhelming maybe too, because I'm in a field of healthcare, I have to go outside, I have to work, that can make me more susceptible to any of the repercussions of COVID. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty that people are facing in that realm. How about you, Jose? What did you feel?
Yeah, thanks for asking. But I think for us it was very similar. I think, well, one thing that I very noticed was there was not a lot of what was happening in. So I live in Ohio, so what was happening in the state, there wasn't a lot of translation getting to the community, and so there was a lot of confusion, and just not aware of what's going on and how can we protect it and keep ourselves safe. And so
Right.
that was very difficult to see, and I was very thankful and humbled by a lot of the organizers in the state and community organizers who were good friends of mine, just springing into action and creating those resources for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, you know, let's address the elephant in the room. What's at stake for you and your family losing DACA? And also, can you kind of tell us about what are your personal goals? I mean, you talked a little bit about working in the healthcare field, and which is now very for a good time everyone was talking about that, and about the people who were in the front lines fighting against the virus. And then what does that also mean for you, just losing your DACA?
Yeah. So in terms of what's at stake for me, I come from a mixed status family, and so that's also something that's less frequently talked about and what that actually means. And so that basically is where there's somebody in the immediate family that does have citizenship. It's usually a child of parents that are undocumented, and others maybe are undocumented as well. So I'm from a mixed status family, and so that's an area of concern, right? What happens to my family in that realm? And then to add, in terms of losing DACA, because the next consequence in why I speak of this is it's most likely being deported or being in legal separation proceedings, etc. So my siblings and I were also born in different countries. And so if we were to be separated, right, a lot of families might be preparing to go back together. My family would go back broken and we would all be separated. And so in terms of, having DACA, that means that not only does my family stay together, of course, that's what I want, but it's also making sure that we're safe, and that we have the means to provide and prepare for any of the circumstances or the worst that could happen. And something else that is really important for me, just in terms of my own undocumented identity and what I want what I want my legacy and what I want people to remember is expanding the undocumented narrative. So I myself am Muslim, right? You can physically see that, but being Muslim and being undocumented adds multiple layers on fear and worry, because if I'm stopped or questioned, it could be because I'm Muslim. But if they find out that I'm undocumented, right, what does that mean for me? And that adds even more consequences onto whatever, trouble I could be in. And so, I want people to recognize that though Latinx folks are maybe what a lot of people presume are a majority population of undocumented people, there are also populations of non-Latinx folks that are undocumented. And it became a reality for me at the moment where I decided to wear the hijab, because I didn't always wear it. This is a choice. And I actually started wearing it when the new administration had come in, because I just happened to feel secure and happy with my faith at that time. It wasn't purposeful. It just was, that's when it happened. And so for me, making the decision to wear the hijab, right, I think a lot of decisions revolve around certain identities. We do things or we don't do things because they're dictated by our fears of the identities that we hold. But I decided I was more secure in my decision and deciding to wear the hijab because I didn't believe that I wanted to sacrifice a part of my identity to protect the other from being oppressed or marginalized or questioned. that if I lived in fear, I wouldn't be able to live in faith. And that sacrifice, it didn't seem worth it for me. So, my goal leading into that, right, is to be an example for others, to be all that you are, no matter what an identification card or lack of might tell others about you. In terms of my professional goals, I want to be a doctor. That's my goal. That's been me since second grade Filza. I wanted to be a doctor. People say you don't know when you're little. This one did. And so that's what I work towards, right? It's not just with or without DACA, I do have faith that I will be there. I will become a doctor. I like to challenge by choice and not to put things down, but to put them into perspective. So I want to be the doctor that does that. I want to be the doctor that advocates for not only Muslim folks, right, in the healthcare system. It goes beyond that for me. It's not just about my identity. It's about undocumented people. It's about LGBTQ folks. It's about the Black community. It's about everybody that doesn't get the same healthcare and the same benefits on this certain basis that people have, for some reason, thought that they can't get this certain treatment for. And I don't think that's okay. So I want to be able to show folks and be somebody that is an agent for them, that they can advocate, they can rely on, right? That somebody will be in their corner and that somebody's going to be Filza. And I want to do that through the lens of medicine.
That's so beautiful. Seriously. I mean,
I'm like a reciprocal crier, so if I see tears, I will tear.
Hey, Filza, everything you just said was so beautiful, and it comes so much from here, in a time that we're living in, as everything that has happened in the last few days, and then a friend of mine, who I see that is seeing Kelsey, she texted me writing saying, "Hey, if a decision happens on DACA this Monday, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen to this country," but hearing people like you talk, and what you're fighting for, and how it's so deeply connected to the love that you have for your people, your community, that's so freaking beautiful. And that's what we need in a moment like this, So thank you for all that.
That love goes right back to you, Jose. I mean, you've done so much, and you are doing so much, and this broadcast is a testament to that. I truly hope, I know the undocumented community, for one, is proud of you, and I truly hope ISN is proud of you, your Ohio community, everybody, all the students that you've advocated for, given the platform. You say this phrase all the time, and I have it in the back of my mind, is you're in the business of empowering people. That's what you want to do, and that's your phrase, and that's you live that truth. And so just how it's powerful for me to see you and you to see me, I am thankful so much that you've given me the platform to be able to talk and to show people, right, who I am and why I deserve the same opportunity to have my dreams as others do. So thank you to you.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that. It means a lot. What do you hope that people watching this see, or not see, but get out of this, out of the conversation and all that we're talking about?
Yeah, there are a few things, and I made some points in my mind to talk about, but just coming right out of undergrad, all the work that I'm seeing folks put into community, into keeping the missions and motivation alive in students. I've been at the end of knowing what it's like to struggle to navigate, to be afraid that even though I'm going to Loyola, that could be taken away from me at any moment. So if you're an ally watching this, an organizer, faculty or staff at an institution, there are going to be so many students, just in this realm of speaking towards students that are in higher education or in high school, that are going to be worried about their funding for their education. They're going to be having questions and problems about legal support. if the ruling is not in our favor. And overall, and most importantly, their safety and what that means. There's so many laws that people are not considering state to state. You know, some states like Illinois, quote unquote, are friendly, and then there's the total opposite of that, right? And so there are people and students from all around. You know, this is Loyola University Chicago has students from everywhere, international students including, and most universities can say that they have that, right? But there are not one solution will fit for everybody, and that's why the circumstances are difficult. But we need to do our best. What I'm going to ask you, if you're, you know, fall into the categories of just knowing that your institution or organization has undocumented people or students, I want you to ask, are you prepared to support undocumented people and students? Are you prepared as a person and as an organization if a ruling doesn't favor DACA? And then I'm going to ask you to find the answer. And if it's not a good one, I want you to make it better. That's the accountability that I'm going to ask of people that have privilege, that have the power to ask on our behalf and make sure that they're thinking of us, because we're always thinking about you, you know, and where your voice falls for us. And then I think this is something Jose and I have talked about in the past too, is I want other people to know that, you know, while our stories can be sad and they invoke a certain self of helplessness, even from other people and allies, I want us to be celebrated. And I know these are hard times to ask for celebrations, so that's not asking for certain, but I think it's to ask and to remind folks that undocumented students are resilient and they're amazing and they've worked so hard for their opportunities. And so not only is it just like you deserve not parties and stuff, but it's to be seen as just kids in this world that have done so much and just deserve to do better and keep living our lives safely and with the freedoms that many others are awarded. And so moving away from painting our narratives as if they're deficits and moving towards humanizing people, including the undocumented community and not. And that's the world that we're living in today. And then a quick, just, you know, shout out, I guess, to, you know, voting privileges. I think right now we're in the time where that's becoming a very, very strong ask and requirement and accountability for a lot of people. And to acknowledge that undocumented folks don't have that privilege to vote. And so how are you exercising your privilege as somebody that might have the ability to vote, to stand up and have a voice, and your vote represents our best interests and our needs. So, you know, that's what I want, because these faces of DACA, these stories are powerful and they're wonderful. Like, I don't even know all of them, but I know that they're amazing, you know, and I can already I just know that, you know, I don't need any proof of that. And so that's why, you know, just as much as we deserve anything, we deserve to be looked at as resilient, amazing kids in this world. So, yeah.
You gotta stop making me cry, girl.
I tend to do that a lot. A lot of people probably say watching this, they're like, yeah, she does that.
Like, yeah, just when I was doing community organizing in Cincy, we you know, I always said my organizing style is storytelling. That is the power that we one have in sharing your story. Reminds you of the struggles that you have gone through, and then how you're still here. But I also, as I was organizing and I was helping, you know, folks share their story who were interested in it and were ready to start sharing their story out in public, I think me and other undocumented youth DACA recipients got so much more out of listening to other folks' story, because it just reminded of our own power and reminded us, like, while we might not have gone through very similar to the same things, but that shared struggle, that's a kinship that that is very easily connected by even sometimes just saying, like, I have DACA to folks. It, like, that's just like, oh, you're fam, like, that's it. You're fam.
Come here.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and we know it, you know. And so, the power of story is so beautiful, and it's so much more for us individually who are going through this. So, yeah, thank you for saying that too. Um, you're also if folks who are watching this, if they haven't realized, like, Filza is a tremendous leader, tremendous organizer. She's a powerhouse of itself. And as like a leader in this network in the Jesuit world, like what message would you give to other DACA recipients or undocumented people who are awaiting a decision?
Yeah. Um, I guess first, I want to say that I wouldn't be justified by having this conversation if I didn't take the time to address and acknowledge what's happened, this week alone and for generations. So I know that not everybody has the ability to be on the front lines. I can say firsthand that my undocumented status prevents me from doing that in moments because I'm not sure what the consequences could be for me. But then I choose to show up in different ways. And so I want to remind undocumented people to stand if able with each other, but right now to also stand with oppressed communities who are not undocumented, our Black community, our LGBTQ community, and more. I want to note that us, fighting for liberation and justice for others, it doesn't take away from our own fight and liberation. It adds power to it. And today, the pain and the suffering of the Black community, and then tomorrow, it could be ours, right? And so I want to be the first to say that in the past, I rarely saw Muslim people fighting and advocating for undocumented people. But from now on, I know that they and many others will, and it's not because of me, but it's going to be because of George Floyd. So say his name and, just take a moment, I guess, with that. That's a lot. Um, but yeah, and then second, I want to validate all undocumented folks, who are across the nation watching this, families and students, young people. And I want to tell you that no matter what hardships you've experienced, that you've made it so far with so little. And that means so much. And that's, a failure of the system, but it's a testament of your faith and of your strength and your resilience to be better, to overcome that adversity when people are actually telling you that you cannot have and do something. And I say these next phrases a lot, when I talk about us and what we've gone through. So I hope it gives you some courage and some light in these dark times as well. As DACA recipients, we're quantized by a number, a case, and a date. And I want you to know that while our DACA has an expiration date, our dreams do not. Our worth and our value doesn't. While we await a decision, I want you to remember that they can take DACA, but not your dreams. And I want us to find the courage to truly, truly believe in that. That we dream because we have a dream, not because we have DACA. And I want you all to know that I'm in this with you. We are all in this with you. And yeah, if there's ever anything I can do, I'm here. I'm here to do everything. It doesn't stop with just fighting for undocumented folks. I hope this conversation makes it clear that my goal and my vision is including that and beyond that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and to the folks watching, I'm also here, phone call away. My email is on ISN's website, and also office number, so call me away. Thank you for all that.
Jose.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for everybody who's here.
No, thank you for hopping on, but also thank you for the work that you have done. As I know, at times being a leader and being involved in this movement can be very lonely. And so I thank you for all that work that you have done and continue to put. And yeah, I think the words I'm trying to say are not worth enough to say thank you for everything. And it's hard, like we said in the beginning of this conversation, it's hard to have this conversation in the midst of everything, the reality that Black Americans are just shouting and trying to understand. Like last few months, there have been 3 Black people who have been unarmed and were killed unjustly, and that's hard. And I think in our movements, in the immigration movement, in our communities, like my Latino community, Muslim community, it hurts because not just that all of our movements are linked together, but we also have there are Black undocumented people, there are Black Muslim people
Right.
who face this all the time,
Absolutely.
and I'd just like to say and remind the Latino community, Black people are part of our community, so it's not just
Yep.
Latinos for Black Lives Matter. We are that, like, that is the reality of so many Latinos, and I'm sure that's true for many other communities that are out there. So
Muslims and
yeah,
absolutely.
so
Thank you for that, Jose.
our hearts, ISN's hearts, go out to the family of Floyd, and all of those who've died, and who I'm sure that they feel it so hard right now because they lived it. Like my mom likes to say in Spanish, "En carne y hueso," from meat and flesh and bones. You lived it, and we will continue working. We will continue fighting, whatever that looks. Whether it's on the Hill through policies, it's on the streets protesting, it's on social media trying to get stuff alerts. Or it's pushing more and more folks, pushing the needle just to have these conversations and to address that this country has a big racial problem. White supremacy exists very much and is very present, and is present in our immigration policy.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
so before we go, I just want to remind folks that following the Supreme Court case is hard. There's a lot going on, but ISN has a texting service that you can get linked with. So if you text DACA, DACA, and then EN all together, so DACAEN for English, or DACAES for Spanish, to 202-800-1541, and we'll give you instant alerts of when the next possible decision day is, and if a decision was made. And when the decision happens, we will let you know all the things that ISN and other of our partners that we are working with are doing to support and stand with DACA recipients. Also, if you haven't already joined Ignatian Solidarity Network on calling on Congress to enact protections for DACA recipients, including a pathway to citizenship, you can just text ACTION to 202-800-1514. So again, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you soon.